Good morning, everyone. Again, this is a Wednesday, April 9th, 2025 at 10:55 in the morning. This is a joint hearing between the House Commerce and Economic Development Committee and the Senate Economic, General and Housing Committee on the tariff issues that have befallen us in the United States and Canada. And we'll continue our hearing. So next we have Robbie Ringer. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all for having me. My name is Robbie Ringer. I live in Richmond, Vermont. I am one of the owners of Vivo. We are the first designers, developers of a stainless steel bottle that fits into bike cages. Believe it or not, that had not been done before. We are the first. We're in Richmond. We've got 8 people working for us. If you know where the Goodwin Baker building is in Richmond, it's an old underwear factory from 1901. We've got an awesome team there. We ship, receive everything out of there. We started 4 years ago. My wife and I started the business, and we have been growing very fast. We've got about 350 retailers in North America that we work with. We work with MEC up in Canada. They were actually cold called us, which they're like the REI of Canada, and to get a cold call from a retailer of that caliber is just crazy. So needless to say, success has been awesome. Being in Vermont is incredible. The retail environment here and the support is awesome. I'm here to share a little bit of the story. To be totally honest, I just want to educate you with what we're going through and looking for hopefully all of us to work together to figure out what solutions are available.
And great. Were you here when we all introduced ourselves?
I was, yes. I've been here the whole morning. This is my first time here, and it's super exciting.
Oh, welcome. It's great to have.
Thank you. So I think probably the question everyone's asking is, where the heck are these bottles made? They're made in China. 95% of the world's stainless steel bottles, Hydro Flask, Yeti, Stanley, Clean Canteen, every one of the bottles sitting on this table is made in one province in China. Renowned Skis spoke to the cost of opening up the factory. It is daunting, and there's a reason most brands don't own their own factories. There are 20 different molds to make one single bottle, and one mold costs $25,000. And needless to say, there's 20 different machines to use the 20 different molds to make it. It's an unfeasible burden for startup businesses to open up a supply chain in the US, unfortunately. Previous to starting Vivo, my wife and I ran a footwear development agency. We lived in Portland, Oregon, and we worked with 20 to 30 different startups from around the world, from small brands all the way up to Brooks Running. Our job was sourcing and managing supply chains and developing product. We did it in Cambodia and Vietnam and Thailand and China, in Mexico, and believe it or not, we also set up a factory with one of our partners in the US. It was with the most automated and high-tech machinery out of Germany, and it failed and did not work. So when I say that it is not viable for us to make our product domestically, I unfortunately believe I'm correct in saying that. So tariffs, what is that doing to our business? Everything I calculated for saying today has actually just doubled since last night. So just assume that my numbers are double, considering what happened last night with 104% tariff. But right now we make everything in China, like I said. And I think the biggest thing to speak to that's already been spoken to today is cash flow. So we obviously are going to take a massive margin hit with how we sell our products. On average, our bottles are about $40. Before last night, we could put it up $5 to $8. Call that a cup of coffee, a beer, a small item. Like, that might be manageable for the public to do and our customers to do. That claws back a little bit of our margin. But the massive impact is the cash flow needs. So we just took in our first full 40-foot container of product for our spring launch that came in a month ago to Richmond, to our warehouse. We paid previously $40,000 worth of duty. Next time, and we're doubling our business. We're about a $2 million business, and we've been doubling every single year. Our next purchase order, it'll cost $209,000. And that was before last night. 104% tariffs. We were at a 55% like weighted average yesterday. Now that, let's call it 100%. That's times 3 throughout the year. We take in 3 purchase orders a year. I do not have $150,000 times 3 and additional cash to sit around. And at the same time, I think the most painful thing is all these small businesses, ourselves included, need, like, we don't have cash reserves, right? We're not massive. We are at a break-even point in 2025. We're just going to turn profitable, which I was so excited about. We got our first line of credit through a local vendor in Vermont about 6 months ago, which is awesome because this is truly the only asset that we have in terms of like collateral in our business, and what costs the most money is buying product. We were posed to get a extended line of credit 3 weeks ago, and it completely disappeared. And there's no other lending out there for small businesses right now. So I'll talk about that a little bit more as we move forward, but lending and cash flow right now are like the two biggest hurdles. And I to be totally honest, I'm shaken out of nerves in speaking to you. I'm shaken because I don't think most of these small businesses are going to survive if things don't change. So we do about a third of our business internationally. About a third of our wholesale business specifically is actually Canada, which I'm super proud of. We've had a retailer pull out because they didn't want to do business with us very respectfully, which I actually pride them in to some extent, because you have to have national pride. And they were super graceful in what they said. MEC, which is the, one of the largest outdoor sporting goods companies in Canada, the REI of Canada, has slowed their orders. We work with a distributor in the Benelux region and the DACH region, which is like Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and we sell a lot into Japan. All of them are coming to us asking what's going on. A lot of them are coming with concerns from their own retailers saying, I don't know if I want to do business with the US. I'm not sure if I should do business with a brand. And we're just sitting here screaming, yelling, like, we are not the administration that is putting this through. Like, we are a community together, which I think has been such like an incredible thing that I've heard today, is this joint relationship between Vermont and Canada. And it's bigger than that in terms of the communities that we need to like group together. So we're doing a few different things. We're doing everything possible to make us navigate through this. I have stopped basically all goods coming to the US because there's so much uncertainty and volatility that I don't have any idea what's going to happen today or tomorrow or the next day. I'm pretty excited about bonded warehouses. That might be something to explore jointly together. So bonded warehouse, if you're unfamiliar with it, is essentially, I like to think of it as a no man's land for where a product sits. It can come into the US and it is not dutied or tariffed. It sits there until you pull out of it. And if you pull out of it, then your duty is taken. So if I have 44,000 units or a container of goods coming in, and I put them all into the bonded warehouse, I've only paid my factory for those goods. I haven't paid the federal government the 104% duty. As I pull out of it to ship to you or to you or to you or to Mark at Outdoor Gear Exchange, then I am duty for that. So that is a cash flow solution. There's not tons of bonded warehouses around. I was just speaking with somebody yesterday that runs a warehouse in Williston, and they're trying to pivot their warehouse to become bonded. You can go through the Port Authority to go through measures to become a bonded warehouse. That's a massive opportunity. And then in regards to just why I'm here and what I think we can do together, speaking up and being able to have these opportunities to speak is incredible. This is my first time here, like I said, and I think small businesses are the backbone of this country, and the hardship that we're going through, like, I barely have time to call anybody to seek a solution, which is something that we've talked a lot about today. Just like, how do you carve out capacity when you have 8 people wearing 12 different hats already to say, actually, you should pause and do all this, when truly, like, cash and sales are king, and you need to keep going forward and making sure your business can generate revenue. So thank you again for letting me speak. I'd say, like, fair and consistent trade policy. The like volatility is the crazy piece of this. It is making everyone lose sleep and, quite frankly, wasting time. I think in terms of maybe what we can do here in Vermont, again, I know cash is tight for everyone, but like any type of grants, education, or infrastructure to focus on US manufacturing would be incredible. We make these in China. There's no way the bottom end of this, the metal part, is going to be made in Vermont anytime soon. but that plastic injected piece totally can be. And I think in terms of around like grants and development programs that could be put in place to help small businesses actually navigate who are the options on the table that could help us do that. It's a $25,000 mold in China. It's probably $50,000 here. Is there any way to figure out how we could either craft grants and or lending? I think would be a massive thing. I realize cash out is hard if it doesn't come back, but cash out that comes back into the economy through lending, I think is an incredibly important thing. VITA, a local program, would be an awesome opportunity to look at to see if there's any way to extend lending. And I think the last thing I want to say before questions, I'm not from here. I grew up in Montana. I love Vermont. The community here is absolutely incredible. So in terms of like everyone else listening, like stay prideful. Like the community is the thing that's going to make us get through this. And I am so happy that so much support is there. So if you're thinking about what you can do, support a local business, continue to be prideful. My wife and I were out last weekend and felt an obligation to just go buy from small businesses. Being a small business, getting cash through the door is important from a cash perspective, but it's mostly important just from a community support perspective. So thank you so much for being here. I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was just curious, so watching the community development finance institutions at the federal level be probably gutted, I was just curious if that is going to have an impact either directly on you or their suppliers of the piece, just knowing Vermont has a lot of CDFIs that are at risk.
Yeah, that is a great question. I would assume so. We work with one local financer, and I haven't had a conversation in the last 3 weeks because it disappeared, and to be totally honest, and managing our resources and chasing other solutions at the moment, but I would assume so. Okay.
Keisha.
Well, I'll just say, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just texting the treasurer, because I think this is a really worthwhile idea. Obviously, we have VITA and Veggie and existing programs that we can look at, but we have struggled to get them to extend and become creative and and maybe it's a financing issue or a staffing issue, but this is the moment that we need those kinds of institutions.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Yes, Emma?
Yeah, how is this affecting your kind of design timeline? Because I'm guessing that you probably have another.
Good question.
Yeah.
To be honest, I've just stopped working on that stuff.
Okay.
Because right now, like today and tomorrow and next quarter are the most important pieces. So we've got a bunch of future development of this. Actually, this lid is launching tomorrow, which is awesome. But we've got other lids and other opportunities. We're primarily in the bike space right now, but we know that our bottles are being used by people in sport and at their desks and in their car and in every way, shape, or form in their life. So we've got a bunch of future development focus on that. But to be honest, like focusing a year from now feels silly if we can't get there.
And how does that feel for the future of your business?
Oh, it feels like the wrong decision because you should always be looking forward. And to be honest, just I'm sad. I'm sad that it feels like our successful business that is putting jobs into Vermont and like us being here and being prideful of Vermont and everything that we've done and knowing that this is a successful business, it feels like I've lost it in 2 weeks. You just feel helpless. Thanks. Yeah. Okay.
Hearts sick. We're with you.
Yeah.
I think we're all hearts.
Totally. And thank you again, like for letting me show that.
So I have a question for you in terms of how we impact Washington.
Yeah.
So we are thrilled with this resolution that's
Yeah.
aimed to repeal the tariffs. But what are you doing in terms of, there must be millions of businesses that depend on China for their production. What is that arm and how is that power of that number of businesses being leveraged to affect
That's a great question.
seemingly unaffectable,
Yeah.
gracious
Yeah.
tariff?
I don't know yet. My wife and I have been thinking a lot about this actually. The reality is like the only other countries that are options for stainless steel water bottles are Thailand and Vietnam. And in reading the news, they're not in a better situation, but not that better of a situation. So we've actually been talking a lot about how do we create some type of maybe it's not an organization, a movement, if you will, of brands coming together. The wild idea that we've come up with recently is like, there's a whole pay it later program, 4 easy payments of whatever, with interest free. You've all probably done it online. What about doing it the other way? What about actually asking everyone to buy 3 weeks early when you pay for your new product at the ocean as a way to like bring businesses together and say, all these small businesses are doing something crazy. Like if you could spend $50 on a water bottle 3 weeks before, we can use that cash to pay tariffs, but it's more than that. To be honest, it's the education piece. I believe we need to seek a solution where everyone can come together to storytell, because there's just not enough understand. I've had so many conversations in the last week with friends that are in business that didn't understand the impact of the cash flow piece. And like, that's the crippling thing. And I think if we can bring businesses together in a way to like unite them, I think people understand.
Right, so there isn't a.
There's not.
There's not
We
an
don't know.
organization that unites all the US companies that produce in China.
Not that I know.
That's too bad.
If there could be, and I don't know, I think something that a few people have said today is navigating resources and devoting time to these things is really hard. So I'm sure I'm missing things. So I think that's an awesome opportunity for all of us too, is just like the outreach to the small businesses and Vermont with solutions, and making sure that like it is front and center and being blasted where we can research and who we can talk to, because there are tons of experts out there. I'm not necessarily one of them in everything, but I guarantee there's people that are probably in this room that I haven't spoken to that have ideas.
So thank you for that question, because it probably me think of a second one. As you settled on a particular facility in a particular province.
Yeah.
What is that process? Do you know the other
Yeah, I think
companies that are also working with that facility? I'm just
Good.
curious.
Super.
Site selection thing.
great question. So like I said, my wife and I ran a footwear design development agency. Literally our job was finding factories around the world. So when we decided to do Bivo on our own, we vetted 9 factories, visited 9 factories, and went to every single one of them. We have an auditing form. We go through like social compliance, like how they're taking care of their goods, what are the recycling measures. We selected the world's largest water bottle factory. They're called Pears, and they work with Yeti, they work with Stanley, they work with Clean Canteen, they work with Awala. So those 4 brands probably represent the largest market share possible in the US. So we scrutinized. We actually looked. This is a really cool stat. Having manufactured in the US too, we looked in the US. We couldn't find anywhere. We found one person said, maybe I can do this. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I don't think they could, because of the 20 pieces of machinery that they didn't have. They quoted us $50 for the bottle. To put that in perspective, to sell at the industry standard retail margins, to work with somebody like OGE, and to work with a direct-to-consumer margin, that would put us at a $200 price point.
Jeez.
I don't think any of us are going to spend $200 on a water bottle. So unfortunately, we focus where 95% of the world makes it.
My curiosity was simply whether
Yeah,
there's a concentration of
massive.
entities that are in the spot, and if you're aware of the other, excuse me, if you are aware of the
Yeah.
other entities that have contracts in that particular facility,
Totally.
but it isn't the case that there is some, is your personal visitation, very much that's how all businesses that select a site,
Oh, yeah.
they're all going over one at a time, making these, doing their due diligence. There's not an entity in between that facilitates that and might be a useful aggregator for us.
Not that I know of. And we did it for a living for a decade, so we did it ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it goes back to thank you so much, Robbie.
Yeah.
We're with you trying to figure out, and I think some great suggestions for us to work on following up. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, everyone.
We're always amazed at small businesses that we have in Vermont. that we don't even know about. So thank you for coming. I hope everybody that's listening will buy your water bottle and keep it in Vermont, right? And we appreciate you coming, and we'll try to do whatever we can to assist.
Thank you.
And welcome to Vermont, a little turtle.
Thank you.
It's great to have you.
Thank you.
We're going to pivot to Kevin Moyer, who's with us on Zoom. Kevin, welcome. If you'd introduce yourself and share your experience with us. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Kevin Moyer. I'm the owner of Vermont Frames and Foam Laminates of Vermont. We design, fabricate, and install timber frames and structural insulated panels across New England. We're talking today about the tariffs and the impact of tariffs. Fortunately, what you see behind me is Eastern White Pine out of Vermont and New York, so that hopefully will be shielded from what's about to happen or what has already happened. But a good sixth or so of our imports are Canadian timber. Douglas fir doesn't grow in the US, doesn't grow at least in the Northeast. And so that just got a lot more expensive for us. And, as a small business, unfortunately, that means a lot of that gets passed through in the form of a price rise into an already housing stressed environment that we're in right now. So it's painful. And I hope the tariffs go away as soon as possible. Is there any specific questions you've got for me, or do you want me to just kind of talk to what we do and how we do it?
I think as much as you could illustrate the impact and where you're feeling that particular impact, I think it was really helpful with I don't know if you were, I don't think you were because you just joined us. I don't think you heard the testimony from Renowned Skis. That was very helpful to hear specifically where the impact was being felt, and also with Robbie. So unless we have a specific question, I think that would just illustrating where and how this is due.
Senator Clark.
Yeah.
If I may, Kevin, it's Senator Keisha Hinsdale. Kevin and I have talked a lot about lowering costs at the state level, like permitting, in order to do our part to keep building going, lower the cost of housing, et cetera. So he's fond of ideas about how we can also lower costs in other ways as their prices rise.
Right, but I think that would be great to have it in committee, but I think at the moment, we're really trying to focus on where, and if you see any avenue for us to, what we could do to help soften this and, or improve the situation. And I mean, waivers, for example, we've heard waivers discussed for the first time today. And have you been exploring that with the lumber industry? The lumber industry is so huge in so share with us some of that if you can.
Sure, yeah. So our about a third of our timber is Douglas fir out of Canada. So that obviously just got hit with a huge tariff. So where that's felt directly to your question is it goes right into, raw materials are one of the biggest factors into how we have to price our barns, the homes we build. And then on the panel side, we get most of those, all of those inputs are out of American states, but their precursors may not be. So I do expect to see those vendors, unfortunately, taking prices up, which makes an already unaffordable housing situation in Vermont and New England even worse. And I hate that. So as far as what the state can do, as you all know, there's a ton of turmoil and chaos and uncertainty being driven by what's happening at the federal level right now. So to the extent possible, leaders in Vermont, if you want to help small businesses survive and overcome all these challenges, please keep things as steady as possible. Steady as she goes, I guess, through a storm, right? Firm hand on the tiller. And there's a lot of big waves coming at us right now. And I need all of you. And I think all Vermonters need all of you to be doing everything you can to just change as little as possible. Keep as much as what's in your control, keep that the same. I know there's some bills in front of the House right now in the Senate to do some things that might make an already tough business climate in Vermont even tougher. So I'd ask you to take another look at that and see if some of those things can be paused for now.
Right.
as far as helping businesses build more, how that construction industry build more housing in Vermont so that all of our kids can afford to stay here instead of moving out, like I hear from everybody around here. I think the TIF idea is a great idea to help get the infrastructure into the towns to enable and unlock potential housing being built. Maybe perhaps even going a step further and extending that to the actual general contractors and or developers who are building housing so that they can make it make sense in their spreadsheets to build that housing. Most of the folks I know at the NAHB and the VBRA who build homes in Vermont, candidly, they're mostly focused on the high-end luxury market because that's where the better margins are. And I get it. I can't blame them. But if you can make it more lucrative to build housing at $300,000-$400,000 a year by allowing those people building a housing to capture a small slice of the property taxes out of that for a set number of years to effectively make it a little more profitable to build affordable housing, I think that's a pretty cool way to incentivize and align incentives so that we really get all the thousands of construction folks in this state really oriented around building a lot of housing in this state. I talk to Mike Pichek about this all the time. Talk to Senator Ramsdale all the time about this. So it's tough, but I think there's some really cool things that are within your control at the legislative level to help us overcome all this.
Thank you. Just curious, you talked about the sourcing of your lumber, huge percent Canadian, what, and the laminates, what additional pieces do you source outside of Vermont?
Sure. I've got some things. Can I screen share? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Absolutely.
Awesome. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our brochure, obviously big, beautiful house down in Barnard. I do some commercial work as well, but that is right there, Douglas, for all of that comes out of Canada. So that just got, what, 25% more expensive for us, earlier this weekend. So that, or last weekend, that'll go right through into how we have to price future projects. And then the panels we build are these. So it's a foam core and then 2 oriented strand boards adhered to that with pressure and heat, and that creates an airtight enclosure around your house, a very airtight enclosure around your house to get you continuous insulation and really drive down the heating bill and the cooling bill for the people on the home, because it's not just what does it cost to buy the home and then what do you have to spend every year to live in it. And if we can help Vermonters take that $500 a month heating bill down to $100 a month, that's pretty meaningful. And this is the way you get there. That foam comes out of Connecticut. Those boards come out of Alabama. And there's some other mills as well, but those are American manufacturers. That said, they're precursors, the resins, the other chemicals that go into making that foam. Some of those do, I think, come from overseas. So I imagine that our vendors are going to have to start charging us more to account for that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, because the wood, you answered the piece about the Douglas fir, but not the additional piece, which is your foam line. So
Yeah.
that's helpful. So that's primarily sourced in America with the exception of the resins.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure, and I don't know, probably can't know where all those components come from. So we'll find out in the coming months as these fluctuations ripple through. But another point worth making is, especially for business owners, we don't plan on 1 week or 1 month horizons. We plan 6, 12, 18, 24 months out. We do fixed bid work. We're committing to projects sometimes 12 months before we show up and 6 months before we even order the long lead materials. So where we have committed to a price to a client, we're going to honor that, but that means we're going to eat the damage of these tariffs in the interim. So that's a pretty massive ripple to just take in stride for me and probably every other manufacturer in Vermont in the US right now who does long lead work that requires planning way out into the future. So it's tough.
I just want to again highlight something that you just said, which is you're not exactly sure where the laminate comes from. I know that large companies, generally not in Vermont, but a few in Vermont, have been spending time since January trying to isolate exactly where every single product they purchase comes from. And when you have a procurement director in your business, you can do that. And when you're a small business, you can't. And
You're
so,
looking at them. Yeah.
right.
Thank
And
you.
so, I just to appreciate, where most of our Vermont businesses are, where we do not have the capacity to have that information at our fingertips or even accessible to us. It'll come out eventually. And so just appreciate you highlighting that for everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Really helpful.
I think I'd direct you to the Vermont Agency of Commerce and Community Development. On their webpage, we learned today that they do have on their webpage talks about tariffs and tries to assist our business community in navigating the tariffs. There may be, it sounds like there may be a work through where you might be able to self-certify that your products are more than 50% made in North America. That could get you away from the tariffs. So I would encourage you to explore that as well. And if you need to talk to someone, Tim Tierney is the person that's been handling this.
That's enormously helpful. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Emily?
Oh, and I just want to emphasize the fact that you're one of, I think you might be the only company making 6 panels in the state, or is there one more? Or are you the only one?
I think I'm the only one. Yeah. I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
And those are a potentially critical building material that could
Yeah.
really help with our insulation.
Thank you. Yeah, they're of course I'm biased, but I think they're a pretty good way to build and can definitely help us achieve a lot of our goals, not just from a cost perspective, but from an environmental perspective to drive down how much fossil fuels we're burning to heat and cool our homes every summer and winter.
Any other questions? Great.
Evan, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Again,
Thank you, guys.
amazing. It's amazing for us to learn about all these amazing small businesses we have in the state.
Yeah, and one last question. Kevin, where are you based? Where are
We're
these?
based in Starksboro, Vermont, so we're not too far from you all. And if you ever want to come see 27 timber framers and panels technicians making homes for Vermonters, we'd love to host any and all of you for a tour. So please swing by.
We are so grateful for your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Oh.
Herb?
Herb.
I just want to say hi, Kevin, and thanks very much for the question.
Our Starksboro man.
Good to see you, sir. Thanks for what you all do. It's frankly a thankless task. I don't know why any of you all do it, but we appreciate you. Thank you for representing us in the state. You guys catch a lot of flack and a lot of stuff. So I'm grateful that you're all there and trying to do what's good for Vermonters. So thank you for your service.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good teamwork.
So next up is Martin Desilette. He's the president of the International Maple Syrup Institute of Quebec.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. I've been listening for the past hour, and it's very interesting as far as the people that have just testified. What they're going through. I am a Canadian citizen, so I feel it from another angle, and I'm here today, representing the International Maple Syrup Institute, which is an international association, both from the US and Canada, that was originated a long time ago, and that basically helps our industry sort of blend strategic ways to grow our maple industries throughout the world. Maple is pretty unique, it's found in a certain portion of North America, which runs from all the way to Minnesota to New Hampshire and Maine, and as far south as Indiana and Virginia, and as far as north as Northern Ontario and Quebec and New Brunswick, which is basically where maples have settled over the years, after the Ice Age. But maple we find all over the world, but we have a unique weather pattern here that allows us to harvest the sap from these trees. And we've been doing this, the population of this region has been doing this ever since the natives, lived here. They taught us how to basically exploit this sap into an industry now that represents more than, across both countries, it represents, close to $1.8 billion. A lot of people look at maple as a product coming from backyard making, but it involves big industries that are transforming this sap that they harvest every spring into this golden, the golden liquid that they call it. So I'm here today, to just let you know what the members of our associations, which represent, packers from the USA, manufacturers that basically don't they do manufacture, but most manufacturing equipment is made in Canada. But all of those equipment manufacturers own entities in the US to be able to sell and service and help those producers harvest their maple, in a way that they basically could transform it and then basically create some dollars out of it, some revenues out of it. So imposing tariffs on the goods that are being transferred back and forth from the US to Canada, creates an elevation in equipment pricing, in the maple syrup pricing, because the US has such a large market that its own region cannot take care and produce as how could I say, enough maple syrup to cater just to your US market. You have to import maple syrup. And that basically will increase the price of a product that is naturally made and is a good product for the body and the nutritional aspect of life. I'm not saying that I'm proning to say sugar, 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 far from that. But if we need to have this product, it is essential for the wealth of our societies, both in Canada and the US, but also worldwide, because we export to the world. So having tariffs on material, on the finished products, on the supply of raw material, because we do buy, the manufacturers, they buy product from the US to be able to transform and then sell back into the US. If all those products end up having slight tariffs, it becomes a cost that the producers will have to incur, which will slow down their commitment and their willingness to produce and harvest something that has been in our culture here in North America, for centuries now. So I'm pleading as president to try to open up our borders and avoid some additional documentation and tariffs that are being implemented that will just add a lot of cost to the producers and slow down the growth of this beautiful harvest that we have in our region.
Thank you, Martin. We're just discussing, so much of what you're of sugar is probably covered and protected from what we've discussed earlier today. And I'm just curious, the equipment that's manufactured in Quebec or in Canada, most of those parts are also sourced from North America, from Canada. I think actually this industry may be more protected than almost any of our others that we've heard about today, unless the plastics and things you get to make the bottles and the glass and the tin for the containers are sourced from beyond our North American shores.
So obviously, I'm president of IMSI, but I also am an executive with one of the equipment manufacturers. So on that side, I have a lot of answers. But we also distribute, all of us, the manufacturers, different packaging, like you said, of glass and plastic. And yes, some of it is outsourced, overseas, but we do have a lot of sourcing in the US. The sourcing that is done in the US is really made on particular models of glass that basically they own the molds and that we bring them in. But it is usually, expensive. And right now, with those tariffs being in place, we are feeling retaliatory tariffs from our own Canadian government that are taxing this US glass coming into Canada, and which is adding cost to us, in our sense. And if we have to send it back to the US, we're sort of derouting some of the supply chain from our operations in order to have less crossing over the border and then bringing it back in. We're bringing directly into our St. Albans facilities and catering to the U.S. market. But these, these are members of our IMSI packers and the producers that buy this glass and these jugs that are being affected, because a lot of jugs, I'd say most of the jugs are made, the plastic jugs are made in the U.S. as far as volume. There's a big company, in the U.S. that manufacture most of the maple sugaring jugs. Then the balance, because they can't produce enough, comes from Canadian manufacturers of these jugs, of these plastic jugs. So where they get their plastic, that's I'm not familiar exactly, but I'm sure that what I know of how we outsource material is a lot through big distributors that they basically have, deals and, relationships with US producers, Indian producers, Chinese producers, Vietnamese producers. Maple syrup has a whole bunch of instruments involved in the production of it. So there's a lot of instruments that rely on microchips and all that are manufactured across the world in different, for different stages that we complete assemblies in Quebec but again, I don't want to deviate. I'm speaking from the heart. Our members are hurting a lot at the fact of knowing their equipment is going to cost much more money and that they will not be able to continue to produce and generate those revenues that are so helpful for all of them and their families and communities.
Thank you, Martin. I think we have a question, Tom.
Yes.
Martin, I want to say there's always been a healthy rivalry between Vermont maple syrup and Canadian maple syrup. And I appreciate your testimony, recognizing that it's a healthy ecosystem and that we help each other with supplies and materials. I want you to know, as a proud Vermonter, I've never tried Canadian maple syrup, but in protest to these tariffs and in solidarity with my Canadian friends, I'm going to be buying some Canadian maple syrup, and I'll let you know what I think of it, okay? But
Give a taste off. We'll have a taste off.
Well, I will be honest with you, Quebec exports about 60% of its crop to the US. And, there's some large packers in Vermont that represents hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue that bottle this syrup. So sometimes you may be having a Canadian maple syrup without you knowing it. So, but I really appreciate your help. And what is the beauty of maple syrup? It is really like fine wines. Producers like to promote their areas. There's a lot of agro-tourism around all of this industry because every producer has a different taste to its maple syrup. It comes from a different piece of land. It's boiled from a different cook. It's harvested in a different way. So all products from different regions, different producers have their own, and these folks have learned how to market and sell these through the internet. And you have maple syrup you could find in Germany that comes from a little town of Richmond where Robbie comes from, So I really feel that, we must make sure that these producers and all parties involved in this industry are free of this tariff war.
Good question.
Great. Thank you so much, Martin. That was perfect. And more to follow. I think we're going to shift. I'm unclear to Mark and Forrest want to go together? Yeah. Okay, great. So we would welcome Mark Sherman and Forrest Harger.
Martin, thank you very much for joining us today.
I
Thanks so
thank
much.
you, and I really appreciate all the great work you're doing. This is a hard time for all of us, and I appreciate your patience and the fact that you're letting him speak out. Thank you, and you have a
Right.
good rest of the day.
Thank
As
you.
well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome, Mark and Forrest.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This weather, I'm hoping for the 2 cans I have tapped in my front yard to generate another small run. My name is Mark Sherman. I'm one of the founding owners of Outdoor Gear Exchange. I hope everyone here is familiar with my store and has shopped there, but on the off chance that perhaps you aren't or from another part of the state, Outdoor Gear Exchange located on Church Street in Burlington and has a satellite shop in Waitsfield and a website, gearx.com. We've been a retailer in the specialty outdoor space since opening 30 years ago. And in that time, we've grown. We've purchased our own building and we've weathered the many economic events that we've all seen, such as 9/11, the financial crisis of 2008, and the economic collapse during 2020 when COVID struck. Since then, we've been managing through the past 5 years of uncertain economic outcome, supply chain issues, global conflict, and waning consumer confidence. We grew our sales and staff significantly through 2021, though more recently have jettisoned a failing business unit and reduced our staff by over 50%, with sales on track to be only 40% of our peak in 2021 this year. Through this, we've maintained our position as a pillar of the outdoor retail community locally and nationwide, as well as a cornerstone of Burlington's thriving downtown community. I'd like to take a moment today to testify on the concerning anticipated impacts of the recent universal tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, which I realize no one in this room has a direct ability to impact, but I think there's certainly a lot we can do together. These tariffs will impact our business and Vermont's economy at a time when local businesses of all types are already challenged. And I'm speaking from the retail standpoint as the next step from the many manufacturers that you've heard from, and as it impacts both our customers and our employees. 85% of our goods are made overseas or from component parts that come from abroad and will be subject to tariffs in the way Robbie from Bibo discussed earlier. The tariffs directly increase the prices at the maker wholesale level, which passes on up through the chain and end up passed on to consumers. We've already begun to see cost and MSRP, manufacturer suggested retail price increases, come through from our vendors in real time, with more expected for fall goods that will begin to land in this country in May and June and ship to us in July and August. Costs per unit will go up to us and be passed on to customers at retail. Financing will be needed to accommodate this. As an example, if the price of our goods go up by 25%, we will either need to secure 25% more financing, or more realistically, reduce the size of our orders in units to maintain a steady total cost, and likely reduce the breadth of our offerings to be able to maintain a critical depth in the products we do stock. This could drive sales to online competitors who may be able to stock more, including direct-to-consumer sales by many of our vendors. This doesn't take into account reduced spending expectations on behalf of customers, which will further reduce our spending. This reduction will reduce our total gross profit dollars and reduce our ability to maintain or create jobs, as well as limiting our ability to increase wages to our existing employee base. At our scale, we have a minimum payroll to operate effectively, and if sales won't support that, then we can't continue to operate indefinitely. We've had uncertainty and instability in unprecedented ways since COVID. Through 30 years of business, we've seen the most volatility and unpredictability in the past 5 years. Currently, customers are spooked and cautious with their spending, and we've seen this for the past 6 to 12 months, with uncertainty surrounding the election and conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East. It is getting and will continue to get worse with the uncertainty of how tariffs will impact people day to day. You know, some of us are lucky. I've been paying $8 for eggs for 6 years, so I haven't noticed that impact. But many people, especially in the state, are not in that position. While the final resting spot for Canadian tariffs remains uncertain, we feel that the damage to the cross-border relationship will impact Canadian tourism, and with that, their contribution to our sales on Church Street and throughout the state's tourism industry. especially in busy summer weeks such as the Canada Day in early July, Canadian Construction Holiday in August, and Canadian Thanksgiving concurrent with Indigenous Peoples Day in October. Right. I've seen elbows up signs around the state suggesting that Vermonters are aligned with Canada's frustrations more so than they are against them. This is a great cross-border benefit from Vermont to Canada, but I do understand the anger on the other side of the border and know it will impact us. With anticipated declines in foot traffic from lost Canadian tourism, potential reduced regional tourism due to economic uncertainty, and the impact of decimated savings and retirement accounts from the recent stock market whipsaws, there is a real and tangible risk that we and other local Vermont communities will see decreased vibrancy in downtowns. As we know, reduced foot traffic makes room for more concerning behaviors to become more present. I can only speak for Burlington, but we feel like things are improving and have concerns that the impacts of tariffs discussed above may slow or reverse the progress which stands to further amplify the potentially detrimental effects of these tariffs on Burlington and Vermont's economy. Thank you for taking the time to hear from me and the other businesses that have testified. We hope that there may be some sort of relief available to help us weather the newest storm that we're in, and that the state can allocate funds towards grants or low-cost financing and to help with cash flow. Marketing or PR campaigns to promote the support of local retail and hospitality businesses, and to consider policy modifications to help us, such as one that I recently requested a while ago to remove the sales tax obligation on stolen goods. I'm sure you all realize that currently we as a business who is authorized to collect sales tax are expected to remit tax on non-collected taxes for goods stolen from us. If we have $200,000 in goods stolen and 100,000 of those are actually taxable, should they have been sold, we're responsible for 7% tax on those stolen goods, even though we collected no money on them. This, in my opinion, is a simple and impactful change that can be made to the current tax structure that would help us. In that case, that would save us $7,000 a year. Maybe not a lot, but it all adds up. Moreover, we hope that the governor, who has among, if not the highest approval ratings of the nation's governors, can work through the National Governors Group and with our congressional delegation to make it clear that these recent tariffs will only serve to depress the national economy and benefit no one. And of course, this applies significantly to Vermont. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
You want to?
Yeah, and then
Have him feel free to-
Deputy Vote, I think you're doing this together.
Sure. So, Mark, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. Practically neighbors.
I know.
Literally, I live down the block
Oh, yeah.
from her.
So my name is Forrest Harger, and I'm the Vice President of the Office of the Chair. I work directly for Donna Carpenter, who's the owner of Burton, and of course, her husband, her late husband, Jay Carpenter, founded the company here in Vermont. And I want to take a moment to just thank Chairwoman Clarkson and Chairman Marcotte for holding this hearing today and for including Burton and giving us an opportunity to have our voices heard. So in case you don't know what Burton is, we make snowboards. We also make boots and bindings as well as outerwear. And we employ about 800 people around the world, including a little over 400 employees right here in Vermont. So needless to say, we're a sizable employer and we make a good contribution to the tax base of the state. You know, I was listening to Robbie earlier, and Burton was once in the same state in its business cycle. And I think that both Donna and Jake would tell you that the state was so supportive of the growth of the company. So I hate to hear that Robbie, I don't know if he's still in the room, that he feels like he doesn't know what the next 12 months looks like. But I am hopeful that the business community here in Vermont can continue to propel his business forward and help us through this. And Burton remains deeply committed to being a corporate citizen here in the state, for sure. We are deeply concerned about our ability to navigate the tariffs are creating for our business. And we see an immediate double-edged impact on what they will do to us. And initially, they'll dramatically increase the cost of our goods in all of our categories. Almost everything is manufactured outside of the United States.
And we also are concerned that the tariffs will likely crush consumer demand for goods. And we commit to producing our goods 12 to 18 months in advance. We have a very long development cycle. We are also a seasonal business, understandably. And so we start thinking about shipping that far in advance. Then we actually go, things are wind up on a post about 4 to 6 months before they wind up in a store like OGE. But mostly foreign supply chain. China and Vietnam deliver nearly 2/3 of our production. And about 40% of that is destined for the United States market, with an average effective tariff rate across all countries of origin that could now be into this 70% based on the 104% tax rate on China alone. And that I had to change that statistic this morning because when I woke up, it was different. So the situation is incredibly dynamic and unpredictable, as evidenced by the retaliatory tariffs that the Chinese implemented overnight. And the dynamism of that makes it very challenging for any business to plan accordingly. It's said that markets really rely on stability. And if markets like stability, businesses like them even more. It's conventional wisdom that you make your plans 3 to 5 years in advance. And year 5, maybe even year 4, can be a black box, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to plan. And we are really struggling to plan. It's worth noting too that for Burton, we've made significant resource investments in our partnerships with our supply chain to ensure that our supply partners meet rigorous, progressive, social, and environmental performance standards. This is a part of our business proposition to our consumers. And our decision towards that is in line with our B Corp and Fair Labor Association standards. And that's a very rigorous set of standards in order to be able to be considered a B Corp. So with all of these facts in mind, making a change to our supply chain in an effort to avoid the tariffs is simply not something that we could do with ease or inexpensively. And the impact of the tariffs will force us to make challenging decisions about how we pass the increases on to our customers. You heard Mark say he may likely have to take fewer orders because he can't afford that cost increase that we're passing on to him or other retailers like him. And Robbie mentioned that a bottle that costs, what did you say, Robbie, cost you $50 to manufacture, or you sell it at $50?
You sell it.
So, okay, he sells it at $50. It goes up to $200. Our boards retail for between $400 and $1,400. So imagine the sticker shock that creates. Obviously, we have lower price points on some of our other things, but our main thing, snowboards, it's already pricey, it gets really expensive. And additionally, we may be forced to make difficult choices that can affect our workforce here in Vermont too. And that's really, part of why we're here today, is because we know that you're all concerned about the workforce and the tax base in the state. So we're very proud of Burton's contributions to Vermont and its role in the outdoor economy. And our leadership has been in touch with our congressional delegation to encourage Congress to reassert its authority over trade policy. That is by law held with Congress, not the president.
They've advocated, sadly, quite a bit.
Yeah, it's my opinion that they have done so poorly. I used to be a Senate staffer in the Hill. I know how this works. Yeah. We're hopeful that our testimony as a business leader here in Vermont will continue to build support for congressional intervention. We're also a part of a number of business associations like the Vermont Outdoor Business Association. We've been working with them to advocate at the federal level as well. So we, of course, ask for your support as state lawmakers to find policy solutions for businesses here in Vermont, large and small, in navigating the financial impacts and making the mitigation of these tactics more feasible for us. So we're open to the opportunity to discuss that. Again, just want to close and say thank you so much for making the time for all of us to be here today and share with you.
Thank you. Right. Thanks. Any questions?
I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked before, but how is this affecting your design schedule?
So we're already working on cycle 27. So that would be goods that would come to market in roughly August, September of 2027. We don't really have a choice to turn that off. The other thing that's in play for Burton is we're coming up on our 50th anniversary, which is a huge landmark, like sort of benchmark event in our company's life. And we're thinking about that. The Olympics is taking place in 2026 in February. So I think we have no choice but to be full steam ahead about it right now. It's very easy for us to design a lot of things. There's not a tariff on design yet. But yeah, thinking about once we're trying to go into sample production and things like that, we might have to make some challenging.
Since we still have a couple of minutes, you said that you're really proud of what you've contributed to Vermont. I hope you know that Vermont's really proud of what Burton's done for the Green Mountains across the globe. And not necessarily related to this, but it does factor into it. Does Burton have any strong opinions on the data privacy conversations that have been going on about what we're looking at here in Vermont, specifically with regards to the private right of action? Is that a topic you're at all familiar with?
I'll be honest with you, Senator, I'm entirely unfamiliar with that concern. I'd be happy to ask at the campaign, get back to you about it though.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Burton wrote a letter about it last year, when we were looking at the private right of action, saying that would add to costs and unknown potential costs, legal costs. So, you know, we've been asked by, I think, almost everybody here to look at ways we can ensure we don't add to your cost burdens in such a time of uncertainty. So I hope we all really take that to heart.
How are you working with your Canadian partners? Sure you have retail relationships and partners. And how is all that happening informally for you at the moment? How are you keeping that going?
So to be honest with you, we don't have a tremendous amount of trade back and forth with Canada. Things would ship directly into the country.
You said 2/3 is China and Vietnam.
That's right. We have no production in Canada. It would only be retail. We have a couple of our owned doors, and then I think we have retailers that are third-party wholesale accounts.
Your sales, what percent does Canada represent for your sales?
Probably less than 8%. I would have to double check. We group it into North America, so I would just have to ask if it's split out.
And I'll ask you the same question I asked Robbie, which is, are you, given how much you source out of the country in China and Vietnam, are you part of an organization that manufactures outside of the United States that can lobby more effectively than is currently happening in Washington?
You mean like a US-China Chamber of Commerce or something like
Yes.
that? To my knowledge,
Yeah.
no.
Thank you. I was talking to Mark a little bit before, and he does very faithfully email the Burlington delegation about retail theft and struggling downtowns. I do hope we have another hearing, at least on the Senate side, if not joint, between committees of jurisdiction like Health and Welfare, Judiciary, and Economic Development about how public safety issues are hurting our business climate. Yet another way I think we can do what's within our control to create a friendlier and more stable climate for our retail businesses and our Main Street businesses in what is a very difficult time.
Keisha, thank you. And thank you all for hearing this. I've been speaking with Mayor's Office of Burlington about this, but I really want to.
Can you speak up?
I'm sorry. I've been speaking with the Mayor's Office in Burlington about this, but I really want to have us all thinking about the comments you just made, and not in terms of public safety, but in terms of public vibrancy. Because to be clear, public vibrancy. I do not believe that Burlington is unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that Burlington is challenged, and I believe that Burlington's reputation around the state is challenged. And the more we reference public safety, the more we challenge that reputation. What I was saying earlier about how I think the loss of Canadian tourism has a potential impact to that is that with fewer people shopping, with fewer people dining, with fewer people strolling up and down Church Street to and from the waterfront along the lake, we have more opportunity for those who are not helping the community to be present and get a foothold in what's happening. So when I reference that, what I'm saying is that with fewer people shopping in Burlington, there's more opportunity for shoplifting because people feel safer. People who are doing bad things do not like to be around crowds of happy and vibrant people. So just take this opportunity publicly to try to really reorient our thoughts around public vibrancy and not public safety, because I don't think we have that big of a public safety problem.
But the public vibrancy puts theft at bay, is what you're saying. It
Exactly.
helps protect the public.
Yes, and again.
How do we build the public vibrancy?
Yeah, and you mentioned, do we have our retail relationships with Canada? We have wholesale relationships with Canadian companies, and yes, we expect to have that impact us the way we do with all of our other brands who are importing from many of the tariff countries. I guess all of the countries are tariff now. But I think the impact to us is more going to be on those holidays. We know when there's a Canadian holiday going on. In fact, we didn't know about Canadian construction holiday until one day years ago, someone said, "Hey, there's more French being spoken in the store this weekend. Do you know what's going on?" And, we see that. And that's really obvious. And I know Burlington's worried about it. I know the mayor's office and the other retailers are worried about it. And we recently met with the other retailers and the mayor's office, and everyone in downtown Burlington is struggling, not just from this, but all of the construction going on Main Street, the issues around public vibrancy, all of this is impacting us. We don't need another challenge right now. And anything that this group and the broader group in this building can do to help us through this is appreciated.
Thank you very much. So I think that concludes our hearing. I just want to remind everyone, especially committee members, that we're back here again tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We will be discussing Tourism Day tomorrow. Generally, that is a day where we shine our beautiful state and the benefits of tourism. I think it's going to be overshadowed by some conversations like you just talked about, of the issues of our neighbors to the north coming down. And it's not so much about the tariffs, but the rhetoric that we've been hearing from Washington and the disrespectful dialogue directed at our Canadian counterparts and our relatives and our friends, and how that will possibly strongly impact our tourism dollars that are flowing into the state. So tomorrow we'll have Delegate Rainey Silvestri from the Quebec delegation that represents New England. Thank him for being here today. He'll be discussing this with us tomorrow. And I want to thank Maggie Randall as well. She helped us with the Canadian businesses that we heard from today. So thank you very much to both of you today for joining us as well. And thank you to our lobbyists that have brought some of our American Vermont businesses to us as well. Thank you to our both our Queen staffers, the Queens of Commerce. Thank them too for everything that they've done to put this together. So again, thank you to everyone that testified today. I think it was very helpful for us.
Yeah.
And I hope it was helpful for everyone as well to